Okay, I'm gonna give a warning for today's episode. It is gonna may cause some sort of trigger warning as we will be talking about self-harm and bullying. Hello, welcome back to Just a Breezy Chat. We are on the first episode of the final season, as I will be focusing more on my other podcast projects, so I will be trying to get these out as quickly as possible. Today we're going to be talking about why bullying is never okay. I am a victim of bullying. I have been bullied. And I've known like some of the consequences, seen the consequences from what happens when you bully somebody. But I was bullied in middle school for the way I smelled and for the way I talked. And some of y'all like to do it now, which is why comments are turned off for a very good reason. But yeah, bullying is not okay, and I don't know why we think it is okay, but for some reason, this society believes, oh, we can bully, and we just don't have to deal with the actions of our consequences. You're wrong. Your actions have consequences, whether you believe it or not. And if you don't, well, that's your own fault for being too ignorant to realize that. But um, here's the thing: there are many types of bullying. There is physical bullying, and that's the most obvious form. And everything else, there's verbal bullying. And what differences between physical and verbal is um this can physical includes kicking, hitting, punching, threats of physical violence, younger children may be more apt to bite or pull hair. Now, whereas verbal bullying is name calling, making fun of someone, persistent teasing, and all examples of verbal bullying, there's also relational bullying. And this can be bullying such as social bullying, typically happens indirectly um, or behind the back of an intended target. There's also cyberbullying, which I will go and talk about a case with that here in a few minutes, where you will see what I'm talking about. But cyberbullying is when it happens online. And it's more common these days to bully online than it is in person. That's the sad part right there. But I'm going to jump off here real quick and let y'all listen to me talk about the Amanda Todd case, which is a clear example of what happens. Now, it is also a trigger warning because it does talk about unaliving yourself and everything else. So, as a result of bullying. But yes. Hello. Okay, so we are going to be talking about the case of Amanda Todd. And I'm going to say that in preference because this is going, and I want to really talk about this case in this part of this podcast episode separate from its own because it goes with our topic, and this bullying is not okay. And this is why it's not on my True Crime Lounge podcast, which it will be later on, but I've talked about her case actually in my season one of cases that changed the law, so you can go check that out. But here's thing is, Amanda Todd was this 15-year-old student who committed suicide on October 10th, 2012, after being cyberbullied and sexually extorted. And a month before her death, she posted a self-made video on YouTube, and she used a series of flashcards to tell her story of online sexual exploitation and emotional distress and verbal and physical abuse that followed her real life. Now, her video did go viral and is drawing national and international media attention as well. And it sparked an official police investigation into her suicide, and this led to an arrest of a Dutch man on extortion of child pornography charges. It has also led governments like British Columbia and Nova Scotia to pass an anti-cyberbullying law and a federal law that would amend criminal code and the Canadian human rights system that was tabled in a February 2024. Now, let's talk about Amanda's childhood. Um, Amanda Michelle Todd, who also went by Amanda, was born in Port
Courtallam, British Columbia, on November 22nd, 1996. She would have been my age. That tells you something. And her parents were Norm and Carol Todd, who separated when she was a child, and most of the time Amanda lived with her mom, but after 2 years she lived with her dad. And she attended Maple Ridge Secondary School and the Courtallam Alternate Basic Education. And she had difficulties in school due to a language-based learning issue. And according to her mom, she who worked with children and learning disabilities, Todd's learning problems often left her in the bottom of her class, causing her anxiety and depression. And she was just often burned from jokes and after her fellow students, and the brunt of jokes from all her classmates. And she was also involved in cheerleading in Vancouver with the Vancouver All-Star Squad, as well as various athletic clubs. But she didn't feel like she had a normal life. Her mom got Amanda some support to help her with her coping skills, but Amanda often felt alone. She would go on the internet to meet new people. And you gotta think, at this time, the internet was still kind of relatively new, so we didn't know what was going on. Like, there was a lot of stuff that we had to figure out. Like, yes, I am from that generation where the internet was like one of those things where was still relatively new, and we didn't know how dangerous it could be. But when she was in grade 7, she and her friends would use a webcam, and she started to get messages from friends who flattered her, telling her that she was stunning, beautiful, and perfect. As she would state later, Corey said they wanted me to flash, so I did 1 year later. Now Todd was 12 when she bared her chest for a webcam stream. A pedophile who stalked young girls saved the frames and images of sent Todd blackmail messages on Facebook, and he also threatened to send her topless photos to her friends unless she gave them a show. And he knew her address, school, and the names of her family, relatives, and friends. Now, Todd refused to show any images. Todd refused, and the images appeared on social media and blog, TV, live streaming sites. And during the 2010 Christmas break, the police came to her house and informed her that the picture was being widely circulated on the internet, and fellow students ridiculed and ostracized her. Now, as a direct result of being sexually extorted and cyberbullied, Todd began to experience anxiety, depression, and panic disorder. Her family moved to a new home and transferred her to a new school, but she started using alcohol and drugs, and she rarely went out. And after a year, the blackmailer resurfaced, and he had created a Facebook page that used the topless photo of Amanda as a profile picture and sent it to her classmates. One of more than 700 messages he sent to her via Facebook, YouTube, and Skype says, "You already know who I am, the guy who last year major changed schools, give me 3 shows, and I will disappear forever. If you go to a new school, new BF, or new whatever, I will be there again. I am crazy, yes." Now, Amanda was again ridiculed at her school. Fellow students called her a porn star and cam whore, and she despaired. After that, she would be able to erase the picture from the internet, and she later stated that it is out there forever. Cried every night, lost her friends and respected people, and then nobody liked her, and she began to cut herself, a form of self-harm, and sometimes accompanied from forms of mental illness at her school. Now, she would also face a physical assault. Amanda would change schools again, and although things initially seemed better for her, she still spent her lunch period alone in the library, and after a month she began chatting with an old guy friend who had contacted her, and Todd was aware that he had a girlfriend, but he seemed to be sympathetic toward her and understanding of her situation, but he later he led her on, and while the boy's girlfriend was away on vacation, Todd accepted the invitation to go to his house. "He hooked up with you," Todd said, and they became sexually involved. Now, shortly after, Todd received a text telling her to get out of her school, and that she was then attacked on the street in front of the school by the boy's girlfriend and 15 other teenagers. In this presence, Todd's girlfriend punched Todd, and they all subjected her to a verbal abuse and told her that nobody liked her and left on that ground. And some of them filmed the incident while Todd lay in the ditch until her father got there. And he later said, "I felt like it was a joke in this world." And when Todd got home, she drank bleach and had to be rushed to the hospital to get it flushed out of her system. Following that attempt, she continued to be targeted online and harassment from the original blackmailer, and her family moved again before her abuse followed her, and she overdosed on pills and hospitalized to psychiatric treatment. And all tormentors subsequently labeled her as psycho. Now let's talk about her suicide, because we can't talk about this case and we can't talk about bullying without talking about the after results of this. On September 7, 2012, Amanda Todd posted a 9-minute video in which she used a series of flashcards describing her life in the past 2 years of victimization. She closed with, "I have nobody. I need someone," illustrated with an unhappy face. "My name is Amanda Todd." On October 10th, Todd's mom found her body in their home, where she had hung herself. Sorry, this is a very triggering case for me, as I do suffer from depression and I have been bullied before, and I know what, but yeah. Sorry guys, but it is important that we talk about this because you never know what someone's going through. But 2 days later, the RCMP and the BC Coroner Service began an investigation into her death, and on October 15th, her name was mentioned in the House of Commons during a debate of a motion to create a national strategy to prevent bullying. And investigators conducted interviews and examined social media sites, as well as Todd's 2 computers. In a search of the factors that might have contributed to her death, they discovered that being the Canadian National Organization CyberTip.ca, an anti-child exploitation group, had been tipped a year later before Todd's suicide, and that she was being sexually extorted by an adult male. And the information had been passed to law enforcement and agencies, but it had not been acted on. And this was allegedly due to the belief that the police could do nothing about it. Now, Carol Todd also believed that in an interview with the CBC's The Fifth Estate, on several occasions, she had reported on the blackmail threats, and the police have felt that concerns were taken seriously. Now, reports of the police or teachers at Todd's school had also been involved in the topless photo, except for the Amanda Todd case and everything. And on the internet. Now let's talk about the arrest and the trial. Now her case did draw international attention, and I remember I was in high school, and I remember like hearing about this case and some students saying this was all her fault. It could have all been avoided. But at the same time, you got to remember, the internet was still relatively new. Facebook and stuff was still relatively new. So we didn't know, and the fact that they're victim blaming is ridiculous. Like, let's get past the victim blaming. And this was a time where if you done something like this, you were victim blamed. Didn't matter if you were bullied or whatever. But yeah. But the Amanda Todd case would draw international attention. U.S. authorities forwarded the findings to the investigation of Child Exploitation and Online Protection Center, and it attached to UK's National Crime Agency. And the information that was then passed to authorities in the Netherlands, and Dutch police would arrest a man by the name of Aiden Coban, and his hidden activities were related under investigation due to suspicions that he was involved in child pornography and sex exploitation involving 33 other victims in the Netherlands, Norway, UK, and the US, Australia, and Canada. Now, he was prosecuted in the Netherlands, sentenced to 10 years and 8 months in prison. In December 2020, he was extradited to Canada to face charges of his involvement in the Amanda Todd case. Now, his trial in New Westminster, British Columbia began June 6, 2022, and on August 2nd, he was found guilty of extortion, harassment, and communication with a young person to commit sexual offenses, and possession of distribution of child pornography. In the Canadian courts were sentenced Coben to 13 years in prison. Under the terms of extradition, his Canadian sentence would be served in prison in the Netherlands after the expiration of his Dutch sentence. In 2023, in compliance with the Dutch judicial standards, Cobain's Canadian sentence was commuted to 6 years. Now, let's talk about her legacy. Amanda does leave a legacy behind. Her video was seen by more than 15 million people on YouTube, and it made a symbol to fight and end cyberbullying. And Carol Todd was harassed online after Amanda's death, and she became a spokesperson for her children's mental health rights, and champions the fight against cyber abuse. She established the Amanda Todd Case Trust and at the World Bank of Canada to receive donations to support to anti-bullying awareness. And in 2017, the government of Nova Scotia passed an act respecting an unauthorized distribution of intimate images and protection against cyberbullying. The first law of its kind in Canada, and it enables victims of cyberbullying to attack a cyber protection order from Nova Scotia Supreme Court. Now, British Columbia also passed legislation that the classification of the cyberbullying as an illegal form of harassment under the criminal code. Now, BC also introduced the ERASE, Expect, Respect, and Safe Education program, and to address bullying and cyber bullying in schools. Now, anti-cyberbullying legislation drafted in response to the Amanda Todd case had also been tabled by the federal government. If passed, the BC-63, the Online Harmful Acts, would amend the criminal code and the Canadian human rights, and it would also introduce heavier sentences, create new regular bodies, and to protect people from online abuse, and created a commission to endorse the new laws. And the bill had its first reading in the House of February 26, 2024. So let's keep praying. We need that bill passed. We can't keep doing this. Online bullying is not okay. Bullying is not okay.
Okay, now that we've tuned in for the case of Amanda Todd, here's the thing: cyberbullying is more common, especially like from that. I know. There was a Facebook post back in 2015. It was a bunch of people I went to high school with. It was right after we graduated. And they commented like, "Do you remember when Brittany Drowers went off on you, yada yada, and just making fun of me and bullying me on it?" But coincidentally enough, when I saw it after they tagged me in it, the post got deleted. Yeah. But here's the thing. There's many dangers to bullying. Being bullied makes you feel incredibly insecure. When you feel bullied, you can feel constantly insecure and on guard, even when you're not actively being bullied. And you're aware it can start at any time, but it takes a mental and emotional impact on you. Where you can feel unaccepted, isolated, and withdrawn. Um, what are some things that I have learned from being bullied? Some bullies remain in high school. They become irrelevant. They will have to face the consequences of their own action. As Taylor Swift once says, karma is real. Some bullies turn into Karens, for crying out loud. Have you not seen the videos at all? And some bullies turn into Ken McElroy, which I'm planning on talking about his case on my true crime podcast, but look up his case. I recommend it truly and fully. Now, you might recall back in 2016, 2017, I think it was, Selena Gomez released a series was produced on a series called 13 Reasons Why. And I didn't watch the last season, But I remember watching it. I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, it talked on a lot of heavy topics and it received a lot of criticism for talking about it. But it's like, how are we not supposed to talk about it without being criticized? Because it's not something a lot of people want to hear. I know somebody's going to say, well, it encourages unaliving yourself and all of that. Well, some of us don't feel like we have people we can talk to, and that's the sad part right there. But yeah, bullying, like, look at Baker on 13 Reasons Why. That's a clear reason why bullying is never okay. But who's some celebrity bullies? The Kardashians, obviously. Kanye West. So many celebrity bullies out there. Haley Bieber with that when she was doing that. But bullies don't like when you call them out on their actions. That's the thing. And they'll get over it. But yeah, I went in today's episode with a quote from the famous Miss Swift. Karma is real.